A 17-year-old boy from a small town in Bulgaria just walked into the World Weightlifting Championships and broke the senior world record. Not the junior record, not the youth record, the senior record, against grown men who had been competing at the highest level for a decade. And 2 weeks before that lift, he found his coach lying dead by the side of the road. Lasha Talakhadze, the greatest weightlifter alive, watched what this boy has done and said something that tells you everything about where this sport is heading. We will get to that. But first, you need to understand just how impossible this story actually is. Chervenbrayag, Bulgaria, a small town in the north of the country. A place most people outside Bulgaria have never heard of and could not point to on a map. Nothing about Chervenbrayag screams future world champion. Nothing about it suggests that somewhere inside its borders, a boy was growing up who would one day hold 13 senior world records across 4 different weight categories. But before you understand what Karlos Nasar has done on the platform, you need to understand the number. Really understand it. At 17 years old, Nasar clean and jerked 208 kilograms. Not in training. Not in a practice session with friends watching. At the Senior World Championships in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, against the best weightlifters on the planet, he put 208 kilograms above his head and held it there. 208 kilograms. Say it one more time. 208 kilograms. That is 458 pounds locked out overhead by a teenager. Not just a youth world record. Not just a junior world record. A senior world record. The heaviest clean and jerk ever completed by a human being in that weight class at that moment in history. And the man whose record he broke, Liu Xiaojun, is a 3-time Olympic champion and 5-time world champion who had spent his entire adult life building to that number. A 17-year-old from Chervenbrayag just walked past him. Think about what that actually means. The greatest lifters in the 81-kilogram class from China, from Iran, from North Korea, from every weightlifting powerhouse on earth had been chasing that record for years. None of them reached it. A teenager from a small Bulgarian town reached it in his first Senior World Championships appearance. Chervenbrayag, normal town. Nothing about Karlos Nasar screams future world record holder. His family was not wealthy, not even close. The opportunities that most young athletes take for granted, elite facilities, private coaching, national federation funding, none of that was available to a boy growing up where he grew up. What he had was a gym, a barbell, and a coach named Ilyin Ilyev who spotted something in him immediately. Nasar was 10 years old when Ilyev first saw him train. 10 years old. And he was already lifting 45 kilograms like it weighed nothing. Ilyev knew. Within months, he knew. He told people around him that this boy would become Olympic champion. Not maybe, not possibly, would. At 10 years old, with no international experience, no record to point to, just raw instinct, and a child who moved weight like the laws of physics applied differently to him. But knowing something and proving it are different things. And the world outside of Chervenbrayag was not paying attention. The big federations were not calling. The national system was not rushing to build a program around him. A boy from a small town in northern Bulgaria with no money and no connections was not on anyone's radar. Every program, every federation, every scout kept scrolling. So Ilyev built something himself. He trained Nasar the way he knew how, in a gym that was not fancy, in a town that nobody watched, with a belief so complete that it never wavered, even when the rest of the world had not noticed yet. By 14, Nasar was the European youth champion. By 16, he was a continental silver medalist in the senior games. The world was starting to pay attention. And then everything fell apart at once. 2022, Nasar was 17. He had just become world champion the year before. He had just broken the senior world record at an age when most athletes are still competing in junior events. The trajectory was vertical. The future looked like it had no ceiling. And then his Achilles tendon tore. Think about what that actually feels like. You are 17 years old. You have just done something that has never been done at your age in the history of your sport. You are the future. And then the injury that ends careers, the one that takes the longest to come back from, the one that attacks the exact mechanism a weightlifter needs to explode off the floor, happens to you. Most people crack under that weight, but Nasar was already carrying something heavier. Because in 2022, just weeks before the World Championships in Bogota, Colombia, his coach Ilyin Ilyev had a heart attack on the way to a training session. He died by the side of the road. The man who had believed in a 10-year-old boy from Chervenbrayag when nobody else would. The man who had said Olympic champion before Nasar had ever competed internationally. Gone. Nazar found out and had to decide what to do next. He went to Bogota. He competed. He bombed out, failed to register a single valid lift in the snatch. After everything he had been carrying, the injury, the grief, the weight of a promise he had made to a man who was no longer alive to see it, he walked off that platform without a result. The internet reacted the way it always does. Questions, doubts, speculation about whether the pressure had become too much, whether the injury was more serious than reported, whether the story of Karlos Nasar had peaked too soon. He was 18 years old and people were already writing the end of his chapter. Drop it in the comments right now. When Nasar bombed out in Bogota after losing his coach, did you think he was finished or did you always believe he was coming back? I want to know. Because what happened next shut every single person up. 2022 World Championships. Bogota, Colombia. Same competition where he bombed out in the snatch. After failing the snatch, Nasar came back out for the clean and jerk. He lifted 220 kilograms. 220 kilograms. Let that land. A new world record in the clean and jerk at 18 years old, at the same competition where he had just bombed out, on a torn Achilles that he had been training through, weeks after burying his coach. Not a junior record, a senior world record. The heaviest clean and jerk in the 89 kilogram class in the history of the sport. He became the only male weightlifter on the planet to hold senior world records in 2 different weight categories simultaneously. Nobody has ever done that. The previous record holder. The men who had competed at Olympics and World Championships for years. Gone. 220 kilograms. Say it one more time. 220 kilograms. Jerked overhead by a boy who had just bombed out, who was grieving, who had torn his Achilles, who the internet had spent weeks wondering about. And when Lasha Talakhadze, the man who has dominated the super heavyweight class and holds every record in the heaviest division, was asked about Nasar, he said something that stops you cold. He called him the most gifted weightlifter he had ever seen. Not the most gifted young weightlifter, the most gifted weightlifter. Full stop. From the man who has lifted more weight than any human being in history. That detail right there is the whole story. After the 2024 Paris Olympics, where Nasar won gold and broke the world records in both the snatch and total at 20 years old, someone asked him what he was thinking when he stepped onto the platform in that final. He said he was thinking about Iliev, not about the medal, not about the record, not about the cameras or the crowd of thousands or the weight of carrying Bulgaria on his back. He was thinking about a coach who told a 10-year-old boy he would become Olympic champion, a man who died by the side of a road before he got to see it. After the gold medal, he posted something short. He said the Bulgarian people deserve a champion. Not look what I did. Not look what I overcame. The Bulgarian people deserve a champion. That is the whole person right there. That is the boy from Shervan Brayag whose family did not have money, who trained in a gym nobody watched, who watched his coach die weeks before the biggest competition of his young life, who bombed out and came back in the same session to break the world record, who tore his Achilles and kept going, who won the Olympics at 20 and dedicated it not to himself but to a country and a coach who believed before there was any proof to believe in. Every federation that did not rush to build a program around him early, every scout that kept scrolling, they watched that gold medal ceremony. Karlos Nasar is 21 years old. Let that land one more time. 21. He has already set 13 senior world records across 4 different weight classes. He has already been world champion 3 times. Olympic champion once. European champion 4 times. He has already broken records that legends spent their careers chasing. And he has not peaked. Elite weightlifters peak in their late 20s. Nasar has a full decade of his prime still ahead of him. In April 2025, at the European Championships in Chisinau, he arrived 12 minutes before his session because of stomach issues. 12 minutes. Most athletes would have withdrawn. He went out and won all 3 gold medals. He broke 2 senior world records. He won by a 38 kilogram margin. 38 kilograms. With 12 minutes of warm-up and a stomach that was not right. Do the math. The world record total in the 96 kilogram class is 417 kilograms, set by Nasar himself in 2025. The records keep moving because he keeps moving them. And Los Angeles 2028 is 2 years away. Nasar will be 23. The peak years for a weightlifter of his build and his progression. Home straight. 2 Olympic cycles ahead of him. A Bulgarian boy from a town nobody knew, who had nothing except a coach who believed in him, and a body that does not understand the word impossible. The world record is 417 kilograms. It has stood for less than a year because he set it, and he is already in training for the next one. So here's what I want you to tell me in the comments. Los Angeles 2028. Karlos Nasar is 23 years old, prime years, on the biggest stage in the world. Does he win his second Olympic gold, break his own world record total, and become the greatest weightlifter of his generation? Or does someone finally find a way to stop him? Drop it below. Every single comment gets read. And if you want the full breakdown of what Karlos Nasar does next this season and whether anyone on earth can challenge him before LA 2028, subscribe, because that video is coming very soon.